Hello and welcome to another episode of Cascadia Mountain Weather. It's Tuesday, July 1st, 2025, and we're going to look at the 4th of July kind of long weekend forecast in the mountains. I know it's a popular time to get out, and we have some interesting weather coming up. So why don't you take away?
Yeah, so we're doing this early on Tuesday night, just to get out ahead of the long weekends, and kind of wanted to highlight this picture because this is a little bit what we think might be happening out in the mountains. There's still quite a bit of snow out there. This was from 2022, so there's not going to be quite this much snow out there, but in some locations there will be a lot of snow. And also, it's going to be mostly clear skies, but there will be some clouds and maybe even some light mist or showers around with some onshore flow. So that will be keeping things a little bit less kind of completely bluebird, but we'll get into that in a second. I wanted to bring up the drought monitor just because it is getting close to the 4th of July, and of course that means that there'll be lots of fireworks around. We did have a quite dry spring, and so that is one of the reasons that we see that most of Washington is in the abnormally dry to moderate drought category. Looks like the Climate Prediction Center is expecting this to persist and kind of expand as we go through the months. This is statistically our driest time of year, so what that means is not super important. We average about half an inch to maybe an inch in the lowlands in July and August, and a little bit more in the mountains. So, with one or two rainstorms, that might kind of null that, but we are kind of in drier conditions than we would normally be at this moment. Getting into this weekend, we're going to first look at the upper layers of the atmosphere and just kind of see what's going on. And so this is about 5,000 feet, and the bluer, kind of greener colors generally mean somewhat cooler than average conditions, while the redder, warmer layers suggest kind of warmer than average. And as we go through the weekend, so this is looking at about 10 a.m. on Wednesday. And as we get into Thursday, you can see that we have this onshore flow. So we have winds pushing on from the Pacific, and the Pacific is cooler than the land. And so that generally means that we're going to have somewhat cooler conditions. And that actually will kind of transition into a slight chance of showers, especially Wednesday night into Thursday morning. As we move through, you can see that this is kind of continuing to push on for now. We're into early, kind of late Thursday night into Friday morning. And the main thing that I want to highlight here is the transition that as we move into the weekend, so now this is overnight Friday into Saturday, these blue kind of colors start to fade and we start seeing more red and orange colors. We're still seeing onshore flow, but it's really starting to weaken as we continue to get into kind of this is late, this is about Sunday afternoon. And as we move into next week, you can see kind of expanding conditions and warming conditions as we're going to see a warmer than average week next week. What this means in terms of clouds and weather systems moving through. This is looking at Wednesday afternoon, and we're pretty far zoomed out. We'll zoom in a little bit to see kind of Washington and Oregon. And as we move through, you can see a couple clouds, especially on the west side. The east side should be pretty much sunny the entire weekend with a slight chance of perhaps some thunder showers later in the weekend. And you can see that overnight Thursday, this is when the clouds really build up on the west side. And then we'll see a couple pulses of clouds in the mornings and then fading in the evenings with that kind of continued transition to fewer clouds and warmer conditions as we move later into the weekend, especially by Sunday. So we're looking at Saturday and then into Sunday, you can see that we really don't have too many clouds left except maybe over the far northern section. In terms of precipitation, there really doesn't look like there's going to be that much. So this is a 3-hour precipitation looking at 10 a.m. Wednesday. And as we kind of move forward in 3-hour increments, now we're to 10 a.m. Thursday. You can see there's a couple of light showers around, especially on the west side, perhaps getting the brush kind of wet, but not really doing too much else. And as we move into Friday and so this is kind of Friday afternoon. You can see maybe some thunderstorms, so maybe some convective activity popping up to the east of the crest over in the Pastation area. This is Lake Chelan right here. As we go into Saturday, a similar thing happens, especially a little bit north. So there's a slight chance of showers, but it probably would be more just like cloud formation and not too much thunderstorms. And then once again, Sunday, like a slight chance, but it should be pretty chill. Now, this is the high resolution. That last one was the European model, and I just wanted to go to the highest resolution we have. And the great thing about this tends to show where kind of the peaks are covered in mist or clouds. So don't take these little specks of precipitation at face value, but it might mean that there might be a little bit more kind of clouds in this area. So this is looking overnight Thursday into Friday. If we back up a little bit, this is looking on kind of Wednesday night. And as we move, this is, let's see, so this is like 10 p.m. Wednesday. And then as we go into Thursday, you can see these like maybe the chance of showers, but really those clouds on those peaks and fading as we get to 10 a.m. Thursday. And then later in the day on Thursday afternoon, they've pretty much disappeared. They might make an appearance a little bit later in the weekend, but just keeping that in mind if you are doing things that if you go to the summit of a tall peak, you might be in the clouds or you might get above kind of in like in a slight inversion layer as well. We're going to look at temperatures now. So this is the predicted high temperature for Thursday. And you can see that generally the lowlands are like 60s to 70s, and the mountains are kind of in that 50s to 60s range. As we bump into Friday, pretty similar story, 70s lowlands, 50s to 60s mountains. We get a little bit warmer on Saturday, so getting more into the mid 70s in the lowlands, maybe mostly in the 60s in the mountains, and a little bit warmer still on Sunday. Temperatures getting close to 80 in the lowlands, and the mountains probably 60s to 70s. So Sunday will be your best day, or at least warmest day out there. Just wanted to highlight the lows as well, in case you're wondering about kind of firmness of snow. Generally, it looks like it's not going to actually freeze, except at maybe the highest elevations, but it will be mostly clear, especially on like kind of Friday night, Saturday night. And so, and maybe Thursday night as well. And so that might lead to some harder, more firmer snow conditions. So this is Thursday kind of lows. Once again, kind of looking at the upper elevations, this looks in the 30s and then kind of in the 40s, slightly lower down, and then showing this warming trend as we get into Sunday, where now we're mostly in the 40s to low 50s. And then I just wanted to highlight this kind of Snoqualmie Pass. If you were going out from the pass, imagine temperatures within kind of a 10-degree range of this, about 10 degrees lower if you're up higher, and 10 degrees higher if you're down lower. So generally in the 60s at Snoqualmie or 50s up higher. You can see that these lows are generally in the 40s or 30s up higher. So just something to be aware of. And you can see that generally it shows mostly sunny, but not completely sunny, as if we had a strong high pressure system overhead. And then just one more kind of tool in your toolbox if you're looking for this is on Windy. This is a free service, but you can bring up the Meteorogram and you can see generally where it expects the cloud levels might be. And you can see that on Thursday morning, this is looking towards like North Cascades National Park in the El Dorado region. You can see that the clouds are predicted to kind of be in like maybe 6,000 to 7,000 foot layer on Thursday, kind of Wednesday night into Thursday, and then maybe Thursday night into Friday, there'll be a lower level inversion, and maybe also on Saturday. But you can see kind of this fading strength of clouds as we go through the weekend, which has been the kind of theme that we've been talking about this entire time.
Now we're going to take a look at where the snowpack is. So we had a very dry spring, but it's been a little cooler recently. So this is a snowtail site for Easy Pass in the Pickets, one of the higher elevation snowier spots. So the green line is the median, and you can see median doesn't melt out till early to mid-July, July 15th actually. And we are at the black line. So we are about 10 days ahead of median, and we're maybe 5 days ahead of last year. So yeah, July 6th versus July 1st. Compared to 2023, 2 years ago, we're actually probably 2 weeks later. So there's a little bit less snow than last year at this time, but the snowpack is definitely a lot more consolidated because we haven't had as much snowfall in the spring. You can see last year there was actually a big bump up in mid-June. So we had a lot of snowfall in June last year. So we'll take a look at a few Sentinel imagery. This is the latest Sentinel, so I think this was like yesterday, and this is the El Dorado, North Cascades region. You can see that, the snow generally starts right above tree line, so it's kind of a pretty nice transition right now from the snow-free tree line-ish area to still good snow coverage up on the glaciers. We're going to compare this to last year. This is last year on July 10th, and you can see it's almost identical. So that's what we're saying where, we're probably 5 days or so ahead of last year. One other thing to keep in mind is the Pomus Fire. This is in the Entiat River Valley, but also very close to the Chihuahua River Valley. So it's between Glacier Peak and Lake Chelan. And it's been burning since May. It's not burning super intensely, but they have closed basically all the trails in that region. And it is producing some smoke. Now, with cooler temperatures and onshore flow this weekend, it probably isn't too bad, but definitely once warmer temperatures come back, you could see it put out more smoke. So you can see a little bit of smoke in the most recent Sentinel imagery in that valley. Here's a little more information. We're on day 18 of it. Yeah, not contained. Definitely expect this fire to continue to burn through the summer. So it's something to keep in mind. And finally, the temperature outlook after the 4th of July weekend looks to be going above average, but not probably like any intense heat wave on the horizon. So, maybe like this week, temperatures in the mid 80s or so. So nothing too bad. Well, we hope you have a great 4th of July weekend, and we'll see you next time.